Official record predictions are here, and if the Wildcats do end up getting Mark Mitchell like I expect them to, I think this will end up being one of the best teams in the country.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of the show, we're going to be going through my official record predictions for Kentucky basketball this upcoming season, and I am going to give the prediction expecting Mark Mitchell to commit to Kentucky. We will revise these predictions if he does not end up coming to the Wildcats, if he's not eligible, if Judge Brian Edwards does not rule in his favor alongside the 9 other plaintiffs in Mark Mitchell's lawsuit here in Louisville. But I'm going to expect that one of the best scorers in the SEC, best foul drawer, does end up committing. And if he does, I think Kentucky has one of the best teams in the nation. We'll go through the record prediction in a second. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all of the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this MLB season. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everybody out there, we're free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the show. If you are listening on podcast, would appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, we are recording this in parts unknown today, not in the studio, and it's about as beautiful as it could possibly be out here. Weather's great, and I think we're going to take that vibe, we're going to take the aura of the place that I'm recording in, and we're going to roll this right into my record prediction, because some of you guys may not like this. Some of you guys may disagree. I think if Mark Mitchell is added to this team, Kentucky has one of the 5 best teams in America. I think that Ken Palm would probably lean towards that as well, and Evan Miya certainly would as well. In fact, that's actually what Evan Miya's website predicts. If you do add Mark Mitchell to this team, Kentucky is one of the 5 best preseason teams in America, so we'll just get that out of the way now. For the people in the comments that want to disagree, I'd love to hear why, but just to let you know, I'm in line with some of what the best computer models in the world have to say about this sport. So I think Kentucky has one of the best teams in America, and I think they start off 1-0 against Manhattan. Now, Manhattan does have a couple of transfers in here that should give Kentucky maybe some problems on the wing, but this is a very small team, and Kentucky, if they do end up getting Mitchell, they'd be starting Zoom Diallo, who's 6'6", Alex Wilkins, who's 6'6", Milan Momcilovic, who's 6'9", Mitchell, who is 6'8", 240, and then Malachi Moreno, who is 7 feet tall against an MAAC roster. You've also got a ton of height coming off your bench as well. I think that this would be more about experimenting. Obviously, Kentucky's going to do that during their exhibition games as well, but this is a game Kentucky could definitely win by 30. November 6th, I think you are also going to win by a comfortable margin. James Madison, I think they've got some really good guard play here coming in. Gage Lattimore from NC Central, 40% shooter there, 16.6 points. The Dukes also have Kaven Riley, KJ Wyndham, Garrett Sundra, Gardner Webb transfer, Jacob Hogarth. They've got some players. I think they've got some players that they can build on for them. It's a lot of guard play to make this a legitimate early test. But the problem here is, I think that if you have Mark Mitchell, this is not that much of a contest, because if Kentucky has a poor shooting night, just get your physical guy to go to the charity stripe as many times as possible. If JMU's staying within 8 or 10 for a few minutes there in the second half, cool. Kentucky can pull away, win by 20 to 30 here, very low upset probability, and then you get into the Kansas game. Mitchell makes a huge difference here. Obviously, Kansas having Tyron Stokes, the number 1 recruit in the class, 6'8", going to be playing at the 3 or the 4. Mitchell would arguably be the most physical player and the most mobile player you can match up on Tyron Stokes. He's an enormous point-forward style creator. Cam might be your best option, but Mitchell kind of solves your problem. 239 pounds, 7'2" wingspan, has delivered against SEC athletes and at Duke against ACC athletes for years. Now, that doesn't mean Tyron Stokes doesn't score. That doesn't mean he's not a huge problem and a major matchup issue in this game. But Kentucky doesn't need to distort its entire defense in order to try and make this game winnable. And then at the other end, I think it does become nasty, because Kentucky, again, I think they can make Tyron Stokes prove that he's a legitimate defender as a freshman. Make sure that maybe you put him in some tight spots to see if you can get Mitchell to draw some fouls on his defensive assignment. The second advantage here, with Mitchell being the second option outside of your extremely hot shooting of Milan Momcilovic, Cam Williams, I think that Zoom could have a good year. Wilkins obviously is an incredible creator. I think Kentucky just probably has too much offense in this one, and a game that I'm probably leaning 65-35 UK. Northern Arizona, I think you win. Grambling State, I think you do win as well. Patrick Carey has assembled what I would argue to be a decent roster with some considerable length for a SWAC team. Tyler Bay at 6'9". They've got several 6'6" wings as well, but this is just a different universe when we're talking about talent. This is another blowout. Indiana, tough non-con game. I think Indiana's legitimate. They've got Marcus Burton, Bryce Lindsey. They've got Darren Harris. Aiden Sherrill comes in over from Alabama, somebody that I was really high on while he was there with the Crimson Tide. Kentucky has an unusually good matchup structure for Marcus Burton, who is 6 feet tall. Zoom is 6'6", Wilkins is 6'6", Morton is 6'4", Mason is 6'3". Kentucky has Mitchell behind them if Indiana manages to get consistent penetration. This is going to be a difficult game because of the environment, because of where it's being played. It might be an ugly offensive back-and-forth affair because it's being played in the Indianapolis Colts stadium, and that's just a really tough place to shoot. Mitchell, again, bailout scoring, drive to the rim, physicality, maybe something that Indiana does not have a ton of, some downhill presence, alongside Zoom's rim pressure and Malachi Moreno at the rim as well. So another game that I think is close, but I would lean Kentucky, especially if they have Malachi. November 27th, new edition, Wichita State. This is not a cupcake game. Jordan, I think Friesen, I believe Friesen is how you pronounce his name, 16.4 points per game, 129 assists last season, shot 45.6% from three. They have 7'2" Will Berg. They've got Dylan Battie. They've got TJ Williams, 6'6" Dayton transfer Bryce Hurd. They've got some really good players here and some actual size and athleticism. I think Kentucky probably is still going to be too strong, probably a little too athletic, but this is a tough one. This is going to be a game where Kentucky's favored by 15 to 18, and they're going to win by 10 to 12. I think this is going to be really close, but I think Kentucky does start 7-0. Here's your first loss on the schedule. Kentucky loses at Virginia. This is much closer than I would have originally predicted with Mark Mitchell now in the fold, but I'm still going to leave it as a loss. This is not old Tony Bennett Virginia stylistically, but they've got a lot of continuity here that you do have to love. DeRitter is back, Sam Lewis is here, Chance Mallory is here. Virginia leads the ACC in returning scoring. They get 57.4% of their points back. They've got a legitimate 7-footer that's a rim protector. DeRitter was first team All-ACC. Virginia knows its identity. They know what type of team they want to be. Charlottesville is Kentucky's first true road game. I think this is a top 10, top 15-ish type team in Virginia. Kentucky's probably going to struggle at times to offensively to find what they need to inside the arc. I would give Virginia the lean here. It's going to be a close game, but because it's on the road, because I have a lot of respect for the Cavs and for Ryan Odom, I'm going to say that this is a loss. App State, December 5th, I think this is a win. Dustin Kearns has built App State into a consistently annoying program. They've beaten a couple of big-time programs. Auburn, a couple of years ago, most notably. KJ Vassar, Aaron Banks, Mason Costello are back, but this is a largely reworked supporting cast. They lost their defensive anchor Luke Wilson to Syracuse. There's a lot of front court turnover. You have Virginia Wednesday and then App State Saturday. That turnaround might be a huge problem. This is not going to be something where Kentucky has to overthink and execute something complicated. Just get to the rim and try and play bully ball and try and match up against this App State team and just sort of will your way to a victory. Bryant, I think you're going to be 9-1. You get to Louisville, December 12th. This is a flip. Originally, I would have had a difficult time arguing for Kentucky in this game if somebody like Mark Mitchell was not on this roster, because I think it's a 50-50 type game because of how good Louisville's front court could be. But now, Kentucky, in my opinion, has a legitimate answer at every single position. Louisville could make Kentucky uncomfortable physically at the wing and the forward spots, but now that you have Mitchell, he can guard Carter Knox, and Jai doesn't have to be as big of a defender here. He can be somebody that rotates into the game at different points. Seth Trimble can definitely be punished by Mitchell defensively. Mitchell can also guard Alvaro Fulgaris as well. Moreno, Flory Badunga, a matchup doesn't really determine everything for Kentucky here because Kentucky has another high-proven major star at their 4. This would be a really, really awesome game. You're talking Zoom, Wilkins versus Shellstad and Trimble. Milan Momcilovic versus Carter Knox. Very different players there, but still a really fun matchup. Mitchell versus Forgaris. Moreno versus Badunga. But Kentucky, I think, does eke out a 4 to 5 point win here in Rupp Arena. Mitchell does change kind of where I was leaning in that one. We'll try and wrap up the rest of the non-con slate quickly. North Carolina, Michael Malone, New York City, December 19th. You're going to get a win here, 11-1. You've got a lot of different players coming in here, including Terrence Brown and Matt Abel, who I think are very good players on their own right. But I can prefer Kentucky's hierarchy. They know what they want to be as a team. UNC is assembling something much newer, and even 11 games into the season, I still have a lot of questions of where their chemistry might be, especially against a Kentucky squad who, again, I just think has a lot more cohesion, especially on paper, and I think we'll see the cohesion and chemistry sort of play out as they do start here. 11-1, then 12-1 after beating Sacred Heart, 13-1 after beating Gardner-Webb. So 13-1 is the non-con play. We'll get to the SEC slate here in just a moment, but before we do that, though, I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. If you guys got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy shots bring that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. It's that classic cotton candy taste you remember with a tasty caffeine boost and 0 sugar. No sugar at all. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. You can bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots. They are incredible. Available online now at 5energy.com or on Amazon. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of the show, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Subscribe if you have not already. Hanging out in Parts Unknown. Absolutely beautiful. I wish I could pan the camera to show you guys what's going on this balcony here, but I can't quite do that, especially considering we got to get into SEC play. And this is where Mark Mitchell, if he does end up coming to the Cats, really earns his hypothetical money. Kentucky's not going to be asking, do we have a power forward that can play in the SEC? Does Justin McBride make sense in the SEC? Does Usman Njai make sense in the SEC with Milan playing at the 3? You got the best foul drawer in the league. You've got a 6'9" forward that was shooting 55% inside the arc and insanely well at the rim. He just averaged 18, 5, and 4 against what the best this league had to offer. He was already seen these buildings. He's already seen these courts. He's already seen these styles of play from these different coaches. He knows what's going on. There's no adjustment period. And so while your backcourt may take a little time to figure out how Wilkins and Diallo pair together, right? It might take a little time for Moreno to get up to speed and to really show what he's capable of as a lottery pick center. There's no adjustment period for Mitchell. He can be the guy for you for the remainder of the schedule. And it starts with a difficult one at Oklahoma. Still think you win it. 14-1, 1-0 in the SEC. Oklahoma's rebuilding around Xavier Brown. Pop Isaacs is here. Connie Ruths is here. Tyler Hendricks is here. They bring back some scoring pop. I think they've got some good players. And it's annoying because this game is in Norman. But Mitchell is the exact type of player that helps you in this environment. It's an older player who's been through the league already and is very physical on the offensive end. Kentucky does not have an obvious defensive answer for Mitchell. Or if Kentucky wants to get downhill consistently, Kentucky wins this game by 7-9. With Mitchell on the team, I feel even more comfortable about this game. Ole Miss, I think you win. This is not going to be that much of an argument this season. They rebuilt after an underwhelming season. Very underwhelming season, and the players that they bring in, I'm just not really thrilled about. The fact that this is Chris Beard makes me think that, yeah, he's going to make the Wildcats work for what they want. Yeah, this is going to be probably a little bit uglier than we want at times, but they don't have enough high-end talent, which is weird to say that a team in the SEC, they're just not close. On paper, we could end up being wrong. We could end up being wrong about the Rebels, but Kentucky wins this game by double digits. This is a game that I have flopped back and forth on, and I will pause for water here. You thought I was going to be without it. Nope, still got the water here on the show. At Missouri, January 9th. Missouri is a scary team with Jason Crow Jr., 6'6" Providence transfer Jameer Jones, Kennard Davis Jr. from BYU, Bryson Tiller from Kansas, Jalen Carey from Tennessee, Tony Bryant, Trent Pierce are here. Missouri may have its most talented team it's ever had under Dennis Gates. And then Jason Crow Jr. is the icing on a cake the cake because he's that type of dynamic guard that can go out there and win you a game for you in the SEC. With Mark Mitchell possibly returning to Missouri, that arena is going to be psychotic. It's going to be nuts. Even if he wasn't there, Missouri's going to get up for UK. The weird thing about it, though, is I actually think I like Mitchell in this environment because he knows the system, he knows the building, he knows the staff. Specifically, he knows the forwards that Missouri has that he would be attacking in this game. He's not going to be surprised by anything here. Kentucky's size is not going to necessarily overwhelm Missouri, and I think that the defense that Kentucky has in the backcourt, I think there are a lot of questions there in this matchup. The Crow matchup obviously still is going to be a problem. But Kentucky has more mature options here. They've got more mature offensive options, and if they even hit on an average rate from beyond the arc, this is going to be a game where Missouri does struggle, I think, to pace themselves in this one to get Kentucky uncomfortable, especially if this game doesn't start ugly. So 16-1. You get to 17-1 after you beat LSU. This game is impossible to handicap normally right now because you currently got 4 players on the LSU roster, including Mo Diabate. Are they able to get all of these different international pro experience players eligible? I have no idea, especially considering just how hard the NCAA is trying to crack down right now, despite the fact that they are actively losing across courts in courts across America. Kentucky should still win this game. LSU has no team right now, but Kentucky should still win. January 16th, we're going to take you to Vanderbilt, and I think you start 18-1. 5-0 in the SEC. I think this is that good of a team. And look, if they're going to be top 10, they're going to be top 5. If I'm making that prediction, if they do have Mitchell, and that's my expectation, then yeah, they're going to have a record like this. I mean, when you think about it, like some of these games are going to be really tough on the road. Yes, I think Missouri is going to be tough on the road. Yes, Oklahoma is going to be really tough. Yes, play teams like North Carolina and New York, Indiana and Indianapolis. Those are tough matchups. But when you look at the teams on paper, I know a lot of you are pessimistic, and I think you reserve the right to be so. Kentucky is better on paper than a lot of these teams. Vandy is going to be tough because of the fact that Tyler Tanner is back. He's one of the most concerning guards on Kentucky's schedule, in my opinion. But again, to get Mark Mitchell, he improves this game indirectly because Kentucky can spend more defensive resources on Tanner elsewhere. Mitchell can handle forward assignments without help. Again, you ask that question with McBride and Njai. Are they able to defensively withstand what's going on in the SEC? Kentucky does not have to ask Zoom Diallo in this matchup to run the offense, defend Tyler Tanner, generate rim pressure, and create basically every late clock shot if it does get ugly. Mitchell takes a big chunk of that burden as he would across these matchups consistently. So at Rupp, I like Kentucky. Close, but I like them by 5 to 10 points. At Mississippi State, I think you win. You're now 19-1. Josh Hubbard, another type of player who can just break a matchup, similar to Jason Crow, where if he has a hot shooting night, you just sort of tip your cap, you lose, and you move on. This one being on the road at the Hump, again, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC. Kentucky's roster was built to terrify this guy, though. Again, 6'6" in Zoom, 6'6" in Wilkins, 6'4" in Morton. I know that Mason is extremely inexperienced, but he's physically capable of matching up with a guy like Josh Hubbard. And then behind them, penetration, not going to work consistently with Mitchell and Moreno, and then Kepnog getting into the fold as well. Hubbard's good enough to score 30 points in this game, right? He's good enough to carry a game, sort of tip your cap to him. But if he's not on, even if he is, Kentucky's still got a lot more. They've got a more balanced roster than the Bulldogs do. I think that's just where both these teams are at. Kentucky wins this game on the road. Tennessee at home. I think you do win 20-1, 7-0. It sounds crazy, but this game being in Rupp does change things. We'll get to the other Missouri matchup later. Huge turnover for the Vols. Rebuilt aggressively. Juke Harris, Terrence Hill Jr., Dawe Ames, Jalen Harrison, Miles Rubin, Christian Furman, Braden Liu. These are some really good players, and this might be the best offense the Vols have had in goodness knows how long. Pair it with the fact that Barnes could get these guys to play one of the 10 best defenses in America. This could be a frightening Tennessee team. They push you away from what you want. They make you uncomfortable. They turn offense into a dogfight, and they force weak players to make decisions. Far too often, over these last several matchups between Mark Pope and Rick Barnes, the opposite has occurred. Where Kentucky has been the one that's been setting the pace, they've been initiating and dictating how things go, and they have been forcing Tennessee's weaker options to figure out how to make their team work. With Mitchell, Tennessee's not able to disrupt Zoom, and Kentucky is not begged then at that point to have some sort of bailout offense from other players, a.k.a. Wilkins, a.k.a. Milan Mitchell. Grown man standing at the 4 who can create fouls, and if you want to get into the mud, we can get into the mud a little bit with you. So I think Kentucky wins this game. Kentucky takes their second loss of the season and their first loss in SEC play right after this matchup. And it's coming against what a lot of people are saying is one of the 10 best teams in America and arguably the best team in the SEC. Let's talk about that matchup in a minute. First, tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's really easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their next game, and if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. Ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. All right, wrapping up today's episode of the show, we're going to get through the rest of the record predictions for the show. If you have not been already, with a pen and paper, writing down what you think's going to happen, wins, losses, maybe you think somehow Kentucky's going to miraculously tie a game or two. You can write it down. You can give me your record predictions in the comments below. You can tell me where you agree, where you disagree. I'm sure a lot of you are not going to like the fact that I have Kentucky starting 20-1, but it's where I lie. They take their second loss of the season against Texas. They're going to be 20-2. This stays a loss with Mitchell because I respect what the Longhorns have. Mataz Vokatitis is a really, really good player. David Punch coming in from TCU, Isaiah Johnson, Amari Evans, Elijah Freeman, Mikey Lewis, Marcus Spears Jr. now on this team, who is reclassified. You have a beautiful mix of experienced production, high-end NBA talent, scoring production, and defense. This is a frightening matchup for anybody and their mother. Your grandma might pull herself into a coma because of how scared she could become at the thought of having to play Texas. I wouldn't want to match up against Vokatitis in the paint. I wouldn't want to match up against Elijah Freeman running down the lane in transition, or David Punch, or Marcus Spears Jr., who we've barely mentioned, who could be the best player on this team. Kentucky can counter some of the things that Texas wants to do offensively, maybe, but this is, again, on the road, in Austin. They have legitimate size and physicality everywhere. This is tough. This is one of the hardest games on your schedule. They lose this game by somewhere between 10-1. It's flippable, but it's difficult. On the road at Ole Miss, you win this game. I'm not even going to talk about it. Alabama, a team that has given you hell ever since Mark Pope stepped foot in Lexington, back in Lexington, I should say, is finally going to take an L. Finally going to take an L because, first of all, this is in Rupp, and I ain't going to lose to Brandon Garrison. All due respect to the man. Aiden Hallway, we'll see what's happening to his availability. Jamarian Davis-Fleming being the best option you have at center. Cole Clower having to play significant minutes. Drew Fielder from Boise State having to be a guy at your 4. It's a weird style matchup because Kentucky, obviously both these teams want to run up and down the floor. They want to shoot threes. They want to play with pace and spacing. Kentucky now has the personnel to do that, unlike seasons past, where they can play that game, and they don't have to be small while doing it. you can theoretically close with Zoom, Jerome Morton, Milan Momcilovic, Mark Mitchell, and Malachi Moreno. You could be fine. You could use Mitchell at center, Cam at the 4, if Pope wants to complete the spacing. All of a sudden, you're keeping up with him. Mitchell gives something that Kentucky has now that Alabama would hate. It's a guy that's constantly attacking the paint against their very weak front court, in my opinion, putting them into foul trouble and causing a lot of chaos. I think Kentucky wins this game. By no means do I think it is easy. By no means do I think this is going to be a blowout. But I like what Kentucky's personnel has here, and I think it's a chance to break through and finally get a win over Nate Oates. So I think Kentucky's going to win, in my opinion. South Carolina, February 9th. I think that's a win. 23-2, 10-1. At Tennessee, I think is where you take your third loss of the season. Same personnel, different planet. Obviously, Kentucky has owned, and I mean owned, Tennessee in the regular season for the past several years. And again, Rick Barnes, Mark Pope's got your number. He's calling. This is close. This is close with Mitchell. This is one where Tennessee finds a way to eke one out. And this is not a Kentucky should lose type of game. It's a toss-up that I think is dependent on the home court. Maybe some things breaking their way that didn't break their way in the first matchup. At Georgia, I think you take 2 losses in a row here. I think you go here to 23-4. Now, I think this is going to be difficult. At Tennessee and then at Georgia, back-to-back games, that's tough. It's a dangerous one here. It's a dangerous one because Georgia, in case you don't know it, likes to play with a lot of pace. They like to play very similar, actually, to the way that Kentucky and Alabama want to play. They want to fly up and down the floor. They do get to the rim a little bit more effectively, and they've got a lot of pieces that are coming back. I think that Georgia is one of the more dangerous teams in the SEC that maybe not everybody's talking about. Arkansas, I think you take the win here. 24-4. Jordan Smith Jr., Jeremiah Wilkinson, Billy Richmond, Mika Miranen, J.J. Andrews, Abdou Toure, Cooper Bowser. This is with the talent on the floor, this is like a Final Four Elite Eight type matchup. Get Mitchell, get more experience in. Kentucky, I think, can pace themselves out in this game and win it. NBA talent on one end, more cohesion on the other. Kentucky gets Arkansas on Rupp. We saw what happened last time. It's not going to happen again. With Mitchell, Kentucky has an enormous chess piece to make Arkansas's front court pieces, Bowser, Richmond, or excuse me, Richmond did play, I think, a little bit at the four at times. You can really start to get into your bag here offensively if you're Mark Pope, is what I'm trying to say. And Cal doesn't have a ton of pushback, especially considering he generally does run a tight rotation. He just sort of has to pray that Miranen, Bowser, those guys, like they are capable of stepping up to the plate and actually making Kentucky's front court guys struggle. At Vanderbilt, I think you take your 5th loss of the season here. I think you're 24-5. Tyler Tanner, a team that has given Kentucky problems, especially on the road. I think you lose here. So you are 24-5. You are now 25-5 after beating Auburn at home. This could be one of Kentucky's bigger defensive issues, this could be one of the worst defensive games of the season because of what Auburn has personnel-wise. Their backcourt is nuts. Todd Pettiford's coming back, Kevin Overton, Thomas Dawe, George Kimball III. Pettiford and Overton alone, they could detonate and cause some real problems against Wilkins and Diallo. Defensively, I just have questions. But at the same time, I think Kentucky wins this game by 7-10. Texas A&M 26-5. I think you get a win there. And then I think you finish 26-6 after losing to Florida on the road. Best team in America on paper until they prove otherwise. Tough game. Kentucky loses by 5-ish. So I think Kentucky's ceiling is probably somewhere, honestly, around 29-3, 30-2. Top 5 team. So I think that's probably about where I'd sit. 20-11-11 is the disaster number for me. If Kentucky loses 11 regular season games, I'm asking what the hell happened? Who got hurt? What on earth happened? That's probably my floor for Kentucky. So again, we'll call it 29-3 as your ceiling, 26-6, 27-5 as where I'm landing in reality. and then 2011 and 11 is where I think Kentucky's floor is. Some of you may agree. Some of you may disagree. This is one of the more complete offensive teams in America that will just simply outscore a lot of their competition if they do get Mark Mitchell. We're asking the question, if they do get Mitchell, what's the record look like? This is my official prediction. If they don't, we'll come back and we'll do it again maybe a week or two from now. But for now, you can subscribe to the show here. You can follow me on Twitter at @Lance__. Follow me on Instagram, at Kentucky Podcast as well. On Twitter at LockedOnUK on top of all that. Any questions, comments, and concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.